Hey everybody, welcome to your deep dive. We're going way back today, like ancient wisdom about the nature of reality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're looking at the Corpus Hermeticum
Okay.
and the Upanishads. And you know what's really cool is you've actually shared two different translations of the Corpus Hermeticum
Right.
with us, plus a translation of the Upanishads.
It's going to be interesting to compare them.
It is. These texts offer some truly mind-bending perspectives on God, creation, the soul, the divine. We're going to compare them.
Yeah.
Find those common threads and see which ideas still make us think. Even today,
Right.
buckle up. It's going to be quite a journey.
It is fascinating to consider how these texts, written thousands of years apart
I know.
and in vastly different cultural contexts, they grapple with the same fundamental questions.
It's true. Okay, so both the Corpus Hermeticum and the Upanishads, they talk about God, but in a way that might surprise you.
Okay.
They emphasize this oneness
Ah.
and transcendence of God. It's kind of like God is beyond our normal categories. So the Corpus Hermeticum uses terms like mind, light, the good, even the Father, to describe God.
These terms are not just poetic.
Right.
They're giving us clues about how these ancient thinkers understood the divine.
Right.
So, like, for example, by calling God mind, the Corpus Hermeticum suggests a connection between the divine mind
Oh.
and our own human minds. It's like saying that a spark of that divine intelligence exists within each of us.
Oh, I like that. A spark of the divine mind within each of us. Now, the Upanishads, they talk about Brahman, which is kind of their term for the ultimate reality.
Yeah.
And Brahman is described as the source of everything. But beyond any specific form or attributes, it's interesting how both texts say that God or Brahman is beyond our full comprehension,
Yeah.
but we can still connect with the divine through our minds or through inner realization.
Makes you wonder, doesn't
Yeah.
it? What does it even mean to connect with something that's ultimately beyond our understanding?
Right. Okay, moving from God to the creation of the universe.
Yeah.
Both texts describe creation as this kind of flowing, cascading process that comes from the divine. So the Corpus Hermeticum, it goes like this. God, then mind, then word, also known as the Logos. And then comes the cosmos with all its different forms of life. The Upanishads have a similar progression, Brahman, then Brahma, the creator god, who then creates the 5 elements. And from those elements come all the variety of life we see around us.
What I find interesting is how both texts personify the cosmos as this living, breathing entity.
Oh, yeah.
They even depict Earth as a mother figure, nurturing and sustaining life.
You know, that makes me think about the Gaia hypothesis, that modern idea that the Earth is like a self-regulating organism. So while these creation stories might seem different from like the scientific Big Bang theory,
Right.
maybe they're offering a different perspective on how everything is interconnected.
That's a great point. They might be different ways of understanding the same fundamental reality. Now both the Corpus Hermeticum and the Upanishads have a lot to say about the human condition.
Yes.
And they both emphasize this idea that we're not just physical bodies,
Yeah.
but that we also have immortal souls. This duality of the human condition really comes through. In the Corpus Hermeticum,
Yeah.
they call humans twofold beings, caught between the mortal and the immortal.
Wow.
And they say that we can ascend to the divine through gnosis,
Yeah.
which is like a deep,
Yeah.
true knowledge.
Yeah, this duality really comes through. In the Corpus Hermeticum, they call humans twofold beings, caught between the mortal and the immortal. And they say we can ascend to the divine through gnosis, which is like a deep, true knowledge.
And the Upanishads focus on the Atman, which is the true self.
Okay.
They say that the Atman is actually identical to Brahman.
Wow.
So the ultimate goal, according to the Upanishads, is to realize this oneness with Brahman and to be liberated from this cycle of death and rebirth.
Okay, here's where things get a little tricky.
Okay.
The Corpus Hermeticum says that not knowing is the worst possible thing. Like, we need knowledge to find salvation. But the Upanishads warn against being attached to the material world. They say true liberation comes from letting go of worldly desires.
It seems like they're giving opposite advice.
It does.
It does seem like a paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe they're both getting at the same underlying idea.
Okay.
Maybe true knowledge, the kind that leads to liberation, is about understanding ourselves and our place in the universe. Not just accumulating facts about the material world.
That's a really good point. It's not just about knowing stuff.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what truly matters.
Exactly. Now, another theme that runs through both the Corpus Hermeticum and the Upanishads is this idea of the power of the mind.
Yeah.
And they both acknowledge that our minds can be both a source of incredible insight and a source of error.
Yes.
The Corpus Hermeticum describes the mind as a divine instrument. It's capable of understanding the divine and even creating things.
Yeah.
But it can also get trapped in the limitations of the physical body and become prone to passion and making mistakes.
The Corpus Hermeticum describes the mind as a divine instrument, capable of understanding the divine and even creating things. But it can also get trapped in the limitations of the physical body and become prone to passion and mistakes.
And the Upanishads see the mind as this powerful tool for self-realization. It can help us transcend our limitations and see the unity of all things.
Wow.
But it can also be easily distracted by the external world. You know, it's like our senses are constantly bombarding us with information.
It's true.
And it's up to us to train our minds to focus on what's truly important.
I feel that. Like in today's world, we are constantly bombarded with distractions.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to lose sight of what really matters.
Exactly. And these ancient texts offer some insights into how we can cultivate a mind that's less swayed by external distractions and more attuned to deeper truths.
So how do they suggest we do that? Like what specific practices can we use to quiet that mental chatter and find some inner peace?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And we'll explore some of those practices as we dive deeper into these texts. But for now, let's shift gears and look at what they say about the path to liberation.
Okay.
The ultimate quest in both traditions.
Okay, so what are these paths to liberation?
Yeah.
Do they agree on how to get there?
Well, they have different approaches.
Okay.
But there are some interesting similarities. The Corpus Hermeticum emphasizes gnosis, we were talking about earlier, but they also talk a lot about piety and purifying the soul through virtuous living. They see this as the way to transcend our limitations and achieve union with the divine.
So it's about living a good and ethical life, not just about acquiring knowledge.
Exactly. And the Upanishads have a different framework, but they also emphasize ethical conduct and self-discipline. They recommend things like meditation, renouncing desires, and realizing the true self's identity with Brahman.
It's interesting that while their methods might be different, they both emphasize the importance of ethical living and self-mastery as part of the path to liberation.
Absolutely. They're both saying that true freedom doesn't come from indulging in fleeting pleasures, but from aligning ourselves to something greater than ourselves. You know, it's about seeking a deeper, more meaningful existence.
That's really powerful. Makes you think about your own life and the choices that you make.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to some specific passages from these texts, I'm curious, what stands out to you so far? What's resonating with you most?
I think what's really hitting home for me is this idea that even though these texts were written centuries ago, they're still grappling with questions that we're asking today. Like, what does it mean to live a good life? How can we find inner peace in a world full of distractions? And what is our true nature beyond our physical bodies?
Yeah.
It's amazing how relevant these ancient ideas still are.
I completely agree. And I think as we delve further into specific passages, we'll find even more insights that speak to our modern lives and help us navigate the complexities of the world around us. But for now, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll dive into the creation myth from the Corpus Hermeticum and see what kind of hidden gems we can uncover.
I love it.
Welcome back. I want to dive into a specific part of the Corpus Hermeticum, the creation myth, found in Pomandra's The Shepherd of Men.
Okay.
This passage describes this primordial darkness, like an abyss filled with water. And this, like mysterious, subtle breath, intelligent. It's like trying to imagine what existed before existence itself.
Like peeking behind the curtain of reality. So how does creation happen in this story?
Well, the text says, then the word of God rose straight up from the downward elements, a word of God. It's this word, also known as the Logos, that brings order to the chaos. Think of it like a divine blueprint, or like a cosmic architect, shaping the universe.
Ooh, I love that. The word as cosmic architect. So what does this word actually do?
Well, it separates the elements. The text says, the air too, being light, followed after the fire, from out of the earth and water rising up to fire, so that it seemed to hang therefrom. So it's a very poetic way of describing how the elements, earth, water, fire, and air, came to be distinct from each other. And this separation is what creates the foundation of the physical world as we know it.
Okay. And from this separation, life begins to sprout up. It says, and from the downward elements nature brought forth lives reasonless. For he did not extend the reason logos to them. The air brought forth things winged, the water things that swim, and earth and water, one from another parted, as mind willed. It's like watching this cosmic ecosystem unfold.
Yeah. But then there's a crucial shift in the story. Okay, it says, and after that he had well learned their essence, and had become a sharer in their nature. He had a mind to break right through the boundary of their spheres, and to subdue the might of that which pressed upon the fire. So this is where humans enter the scene, created in the image of God.
So we're not just another creature in this cosmic ecosystem. We have a unique role to play.
Exactly. And it's our capacity for reason and our inquisitive minds that set us apart. You know, we seek to understand and even transcend the limitations of the physical world. It's like this story is tapping into that innate human desire to explore, to push boundaries, to know more.
It makes me think about, you know how we send probes into space?
Right.
How we try to understand like the fundamental laws of physics, how we're constantly pushing the boundaries of knowledge. It's like that urge is woven into our very being.
That's a great connection. Now the text continues. So he who hath the whole authority over all the mortals in the cosmos and over its lives irrational, bent his face downwards through the harmony, breaking right through its strength, and showed to downward nature God's fair form. So humans, in their quest for knowledge, become this bridge between the divine and the material.
More like the link between the spiritual realm and the physical world.
Exactly.
But it sounds like this bridging has some big consequences.
It does. The text says, and when she saw that form of beauty which can never satiate, and him who now possessed within himself each single energy of all seven rulers as well as God's own form, she smiled with love. For 'twas as though she had seen the image of man's fairest form upon her water, his shadow on her earth. So nature, seeing this reflection of the divine in humans, falls in love. It's like a beautiful way of describing how the material world recognizes something akin to itself in this twofold being, humankind.
So we're not just observers of the universe, we're active participants in this cosmic dance between the divine and the material.
Yes, and this dance has its challenges too, which the text acknowledges. And this is why, beyond all creatures on the earth, man is twofold. Mortal because of body, but because of the essential man immortal. Though deathless and possessed of sway o'er all, yet doth he suffer as a mortal doth, subject to fate.
So humans become these paradoxical beings, existing between two worlds, the divine and the mortal, free will and destiny.
That's the human condition right there. We're spiritual beings having a human experience with all the joys and sorrows that come with it. It makes you wonder, how do you navigate that duality?
That's a great question.
In your own life.
Yeah. For all of us to ponder. Now let's look at another part of the Corpus Hermeticum.
Okay.
To Asclepius.
Okay.
Where there's this really intriguing passage that talks about motion and stillness. It actually challenges how we normally think about reality.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How do they talk about motion and stillness? Well, the text suggests that all motion actually arises from stillness, which might sound kind of counterintuitive at first.
Yeah.
It says, further, all that is moved not in the moved, but in the stable. And that which moves another is, of course, stationary, for it is impossible that it should move with it.
It's a real head scratcher.
It is. It's like saying that.
Yeah.
Even when everything seems to be in constant motion, there's an underlying stillness, a point of reference from which all that movement arises.
Right. Yeah.
And they give a really interesting example to illustrate this principle. It says, of this, I'll give thee here on earth an instance which the eye can see. Regard the animals down here, a man, for instance, swimming. The water moves, yet the resistance of his hands and feet give him stability, so that he is not borne along with it, nor sunk thereby.
Oh, I see. It's like even though the swimmer is surrounded by moving water,
Right.
it's the stillness, the resistance of their body that allows them to navigate that current.
Precisely. And this principle, the text suggests, applies not just to, like, physical movement, but to the cosmos itself. It states, the motion, therefore, of the cosmos and of every other hillock animal will not be caused by things exterior to the cosmos, but by things interior outward to the exterior, such things as soul or spirit or some such other thing incorporeal.
Hylic. Does that mean
Yes.
physical?
Physical or material.
Yes.
Helic refers to the material world.
Okay.
So what they're saying is it's not external forces that are driving the movement of the universe, but rather some inner principle, an incorporeal essence like the soul or spirit.
So it's like saying that the universe is animated from within, not pushed around by external forces.
Yes, and this idea actually has a parallel in the Upanishads,
Oh.
which talk about Brahman as the unmoving mover, the source of all movement and activities. Like both of these ancient traditions are pointing toward this idea of an underlying stillness that gives rise to all the dynamism we see in the universe.
Wow. I'm really starting to see the connections between these two texts. Okay, so we've got this idea of stillness as the source of motion. But what about the spaces in between things? Like, what did they think about empty space?
Well, there's another passage in To Asclepius
Okay.
where Hermes discusses the nature of the void with his student,
Oh.
Asclepius, like many people,
Hmm.
assumes that space is empty, a void.
Uh-huh.
But Hermes challenges this notion. He asks, "Alack, Asclepius, for thy far wandering from the truth. Thinkest thou that things most full and most replete are void?"
He's not letting Asclepius get away with easy answers, is he?
No, he's pushing him to think more deeply. He asks, "Is not air body?"
Hmm.
And when Asclepius agrees, he points out, "And doth this body not pervade all things, and so pervading fill them? And doth body not consist from blending of the four? Full then of air are all thou callest void, and is of air than of the four."
So what appears empty is actually full of air,
Yeah.
which itself is made up of the four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. I guess we tend to overlook the air because we can't see it, but it's all around us.
Exactly. Hermes is dismantling Asclepius's limited view and showing him that what we perceive as empty is actually teeming with unseen elements. And then he takes it even further, asking, "What are we then to call that space in which the all doth move?" Asclepius is stumped, but Hermes gives him an answer. That changes everything.
Okay, what's the answer? I'm on the edge of my seat.
He says, "The bodiless, Asclepius."
Whoa. So he's not saying space is empty, but rather that it's bodiless. It's filled with something beyond our physical perception. This is getting really mind-bending.
Yeah.
But what exactly is this bodiless essence?
Well, Hermes describes it beautifully. He says it's mind and reason, Logos says, whole out of whole, all self-embracing, free from all body, from all error free, unsensible to body and untouchable, self-state and self, containing all, preserving those that are, whose rays, to use a likeness, are good, truth, light beyond light, the archetype of soul. It's a powerful image, isn't it?
It is. It's like a glimpse into the very essence of this bodiless reality, a realm of pure mind and reason, the source of all goodness, truth, and light. You know, it makes me think of how the Upanishads talk about Brahman
Right.
as this all-pervading consciousness, the ground of being
Yeah.
from which everything arises.
That's a great connection. It's like both traditions are pointing towards this underlying reality that transcends our limited perception. It's not something we can see or touch,
Right.
but maybe we can access it through our minds, through deep contemplation and introspection.
It's like they're urging us to look beyond the surface of things, to recognize that there's so much more to reality than what our physical senses can grasp.
Exactly. And this brings us to another crucial point in the Corpus Hermeticum,
Okay.
the distinction between God and the other gods.
Okay.
There's a passage, in God alone is good and elsewhere nowhere.
Mhm.
That really highlights this.
Okay, so they're saying there's like a hierarchy of gods.
It's not so much a hierarchy
Yeah.
as like a clear distinction between the ultimate source of goodness
Okay.
and other beings that might be considered divine. The text says, "God, therefore, is not mind, but cause that the mind is. God is not spirit, but cause that spirit is. God is not light, but cause that the light is." Hence, one should honor God with these two names, the good and father names, which pertain to him alone and no one else.
So while other beings might possess qualities of mind, spirit, or light,
Yeah,
they're not the ultimate source of those qualities. Only God is truly good.
exactly. It's like the difference between the sun and the moon.
Oh.
The moon reflects the sun's light,
Yeah.
but it's not the source of light itself.
It's a great analogy.
The text goes on to say, "For no one of the other so-called gods, no one of men or daimons can be in any measure good, but God alone. And he is good alone, and nothing else. The rest of things are separable all from the good's nature. For all the rest are soul and body, which have no place that can contain the good. Daimons is an interesting word here.
Okay.
It refers to spiritual beings that are sort of like intermediaries between gods and humans.
Oh, okay.
That can be good or bad, but they're not the source of goodness itself.
So it's like true goodness is an inherent part of God's nature, while for everyone else, it's a quality that can come and go.
Exactly. And this idea ties back to the importance of seeking true knowledge, what they call gnosis.
Right.
Through gnosis,
Right.
we can come to understand the true nature of God and a relationship to the divine.
So gnosis is like a key that unlocks a deeper level of understanding.
Yes, and it's not just an intellectual understanding. It's a transformative process that can change how we live our lives.
Wow.
It's about separating truth from falsehood, the essential from the ephemeral, and aligning ourselves with the true source of goodness.
It sounds like a lifelong journey.
It is. And it's a journey that the Corpus Hermeticum invites us to embark on, offering guidance and wisdom along the way.
Yeah.
And as we continue to explore these ideas, we'll see how they connect with the profound insights of the Upanishads, creating this tapestry of wisdom that's both ancient and surprisingly relevant to our lives today.
I'm really excited to delve into the Upanishads and see how they approach these same big questions.
Me too. Let's take a short break, and then we'll dive into some key passages from the Upanishads that explore the nature of reality, the self, and the path to liberation.
All right, we're back and ready to dive into the Upanishads.
Okay.
You know, I've always been fascinated by these texts.
Yeah.
They have this mystical quality that's both intriguing and a bit intimidating.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
The Upanishads can be dense and challenging,
Yeah.
but they're also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
They offer this unique perspective on the nature of reality.
Okay.
That's quite different from like the Western philosophical tradition.
So where should we start?
Well,
What are some of the key ideas that we should be looking for?
one of the central concepts in the Upanishads
Yeah.
is this idea of Brahman,
Okay.
which we touched on earlier.
Right.
Remember, Brahman is the ultimate reality,
Uh-huh.
the ground of being for which everything arises.
Right. Like the source code of the universe.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the Upanishads emphasize the unity of Brahman.
Okay.
Everything we see here, touch, taste, smell,
Yeah.
is an expression of Brahman.
Okay.
There's no separation, no
Yeah.
duality.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
So if everything is Brahman,
Right.
where do we fit in?
Yeah.
What about our individual selves?
That's where the concept of Atman comes in.
Okay.
The Atman is the true self,
Okay.
the innermost essence of our being.
Uh-huh.
And here's the mind-blowing part.
Okay.
The Upanishads say that the Atman is identical to Brahman.
Whoa. Hold on. So you're saying that our true selves are actually part of this ultimate reality, this cosmic source code.
That's the essence of it.
Wow.
We're not separate from Brahman.
Mm-hmm.
We're a part of it.
Okay.
The goal, according to the Upanishads, is to realize this oneness,
Okay.
to experience the unity of Atman and Brahman.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
It makes you rethink your whole sense of self, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It challenges our normal perception of ourselves as separate individuals.
Right.
And invites us to see ourselves as part of something much larger,
Yeah.
something interconnected and ultimately divine.
Okay, so let's look at some specific passages from the Upanishads that explore these ideas.
Yeah.
I'm ready to have my mind blown wide open.
All right, let's start with the Isha Upanishad.
Okay.
There's this beautiful passage that captures this idea of interconnectedness perfectly. It says that the invisible absolute is whole. Whole is this, the visible phenomenal.
Yeah.
From the invisible whole comes forth the visible whole. Though the visible whole has come out from that invisible whole, yet the whole remains unaltered.
So it's like saying that the universe is an expression of Brahman, but Brahman itself remains unchanged, whole, and complete.
Precisely.
Wow.
It's a paradox.
Yeah.
The universe arises from Brahman, yet Brahman is not diminished by this creation. It's both the source and the substance of everything.
That's a lot to wrap my head around.
It is.
But I think I'm starting to see how this idea of unity could be really liberating. Like, if everything is connected, maybe we don't have to feel so isolated and alone in the world.
That's a beautiful insight.
Yeah.
And the Upanishads offer practices and teachings that can help us experience this interconnectedness directly, not just as an intellectual concept, but as a lived reality.
Okay, so tell me more about these practices. What are some of the ways that the Upanishads suggest we can connect with Brahman and realize our true nature as Atman?
Well, one of the key practices is meditation.
Okay.
The Upanishads emphasize the importance of quieting the mind, turning our attention inward,
Right.
and cultivating a state of deep inner stillness.
Right, like finding that stillness at the center of the swirling universe.
Exactly.
That point of reference we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier.
And through meditation,
Yeah.
we can begin to experience the unity of Atman and Brahman directly.
Wow.
It's not about thinking our way to enlightenment.
Right.
It's about cultivating a state of being, a direct experience of the truth.
That makes sense. It's not about accumulating knowledge. It's about accessing a deeper level of awareness.
Now, another important teaching in the Upanishads
Okay.
is this idea of detachment.
Okay.
It's not about rejecting the world or denying the pleasures of life,
Right.
but rather about cultivating a healthy detachment from material possessions and the endless pursuit of desires.
So it's more about finding a sense of inner peace and fulfillment that doesn't depend on external circumstances.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because true happiness, according to the Upanishads,
Yeah.
comes from realizing our true nature as Atman, not from chasing after fleeting pleasures.
You know, this reminds me of something we talked about earlier, that apparent paradox between the Corpus Hermeticum's emphasis on knowledge and the Upanishads' warning against attachment to the material world.
Right.
Maybe they're both pointing towards the same thing. Like, true knowledge isn't about amassing information, but about understanding the nature of reality and our place within it. And maybe true detachment isn't about rejecting the world, but about seeing through the illusion of separateness and recognizing our interconnectedness with everything.
That's a profound insight.
Oh, wow.
You've really grasped the essence of what these ancient traditions are trying to convey.
Okay, so we've got meditation and detachment.
Yeah.
What other practices or teachings do the Upanishads offer?
Well, they also emphasize the importance of ethical conduct,
Uh-huh.
of living a life that's aligned with the principles of truth, compassion, and nonviolence.
Okay.
They see ethical living as a natural expression of our true nature as Atman.
So it's like ethical living is a way of aligning ourselves with the cosmic order, with the fundamental harmony of the universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we live ethically, we create more harmony in our own lives and in the world around us.
You know, it's incredible how these ancient texts written thousands of years ago are still so relevant today. They offer this timeless wisdom that can help us navigate the complexities of modern life and find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
I couldn't agree more. And I think a key takeaway from both the Corpus Hermeticum and the Upanishads is this idea that we're not just physical beings, but spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
We have this incredible capacity for knowledge, for self-realization, for connecting with something larger than ourselves.
It's true.
And these texts offer guidance and inspiration for those who are seeking to explore those deeper dimensions of their being.
It's been an amazing journey exploring these texts with you. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the nature of reality, the self, and the universe.
I've enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to delve into these ancient wisdom traditions and to discover how their insights continue to illuminate our lives today.
And for you listening, we encourage you to continue exploring these profound texts.
Yes.
Delve deeper into the Corpus Hermeticum and the Upanishads, let their wisdom penetrate your heart, and see how their teachings can illuminate your own path.
As you journey onward, remember the interconnectedness of all things, the power of your mind, and the eternal truth that resides within you. May your path be filled with light and understanding and